But no, you should try it sometime, Luffy. I don't like tequila, but I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It really depends for me. Like,
It's the only tequila I like.
yeah, the thing is, like, I don't like tequila enough to pay a lot for it, but if I'm out with you and you want to buy me a shot of it,
Sure.
I'll happily.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't taste like tequila, which is why I like it.
Right. I like 18. I don't mind 1800. 1800 is pretty decent, but overall, I'm just not a big tequila guy. I'll drink it.
Yeah.
I'll drink it, but I don't love it.
Yeah. When the bar closed, the bartender was like, "Hey, if you want to stick around, like here's a shot of tequila." I was like, "I can't take that, but give me some whiskey." I was like, "Unless you want me throwing up on your bar, give me whiskey."
To me, it doesn't really matter though, as long as, especially if you're making a drink and you're mixing, as long as it's not well liquor. Like, some of that stuff is terrible. Some of the my buddy and my brother-in-law and I went to a bar last summer. It's like a nice little rooftop bar around here. And we saw this local vodka and we're like, oh, we'll give it a shot. We'll try it. It's local. We'll support
I don't think you're
it.
supposed to drink local vodka unless you're in Russia.
Well, the thing is, there's actually some local distilleries around here that are really good, like legitimately good around here. Yeah, in my area, but it's specifically whiskey and stuff like. So we're trying it. I made the mistake of smelling it first, and it was the same thing as, like, around here during COVID. You had like vodka companies, liquor company. They were making hand sanitizer because they could. It smelled like just hand sanitizer, just straight rubbing alcohol. It was terrible, dude.
What led you to smell it? Like, what did you think it was going to smell like?
Well, because good stuff smells not bad at all.
Yeah, I don't sniff my whiskey, my drinks.
I'll tell you right now. If you're drinking vodka and you're like, yeah, I don't want to spend a ton of money, hands down, Tito's is the best. Like, Tito's isn't just a random, oh, I like Tito. Tito's for the price is the best, probably the best thing out there that you could find for the price.
I don't drink, like, if I'm like, I don't sip vodka or drink vodka straight, but like if I'm drinking like vodka soda or whatever, it's always Tito's.
Yeah. Because why would you spend more when Tito's tastes as good as any of the other stuff?
And the only time I'm drinking it, it's mixed. Like, I'm not getting like top shelf vodka to throw soda water in.
Yeah, to mix it in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kettle One's good too, boss bro. I like Kettle. Yeah. You just can't, the cheap stuff I'd rather just not drink at all. It's not worth it.
I mean, once you turn like 26, the cheap stuff just like ruins you for the next week too.
Well, and that's also in high school. I just have bad memories of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't drink. Yeah,
like
so
plastic handles.
So I didn't really drink in high school, but I don't have any vodka on my like can't drink list. But Jaeger, Fireball, those are the big two where it's just like, yeah, can't do that.
Jaeger doesn't bother me. Fireball's fine. I can't do Southern Comfort. That's the only time I got sick drinking when I was young was Southern. It was SoCo, and it was. I mean, it's disgusting anyway.
Right.
But yeah, not doing that. Anyway, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com MLB Strategy Show presented by Sleeper. Free square over there today. Take free money when you can get free money. That's the business we're in around here. Talk about that a little bit later, but happy to have you guys with us. 14 games. Just understand that when we do shows like this, we're not intentionally cruising through certain games because we don't want to be here or talk about it. Maybe Adam, but we're doing it because there are certain games that just won't have a significant amount of relevance when you're talking about 14 games on a slate. It's way different than yesterday when Adam and I did the deeper dive and spent an hour on 3 games. So keep that in mind, but happy to have you guys here. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Nice little ratio. We got like 33% almost likes to viewers. You guys are the real deal. I know who our real people are.
Friday morning alcohol gets the people going.
That's what it is. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second. That's all. A second. Less than a second, as a matter of fact. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below if you're listening or watching after the fact. And as you know, all of our stuff available in podcast form. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, whatever you guys do on those Samsung phones, Spotify, all that good stuff, we got you covered. Rating, review, subscribe to the pod, tell your friends. We appreciate you for it, and I thank you in advance. All right, so 14 games, Adam. 14 games. We got a lot to get through, brother.
Yeah, sounds fun.
All right. How about Ben? By the way, how about Ben tweeting this morning? It was clearly still on his mind that he was shamed into not eating pizza. Like that was my doing.
I mean, I just want to know what he ate now because he's about to be like, I got some chicken lo mein and shrimp fried rice.
Yeah, he's more protein.
Right.
Well, pizza has
He's like, you guilted me into eating healthy. Like he made himself like a salad or something.
He hasn't responded to us. I need to know what it was. Yeah.
Well, he's probably in a food coma from the not healthy food that he had instead of pizza.
Like if it was a grilled chicken salad, props to you. You know what I
mean? I will bet anybody like $5,000 it was not a grilled chicken.
For sure. For sure. Here's what I think happened. He walks into the pizza place. Maybe he walked down the street, right? Go a little extra. He needs, got to see the sun from time to time. And he looks at the menu and it's a pizza place and he's thinking about our conversation. Maybe he saw the beginning of the deeper dive and he's like, screw it. Let me just get the chicken parm.
It's not nice stromboli.
Yeah, stromboli. That's what it is. The same place he gets his pizza. All right. We're on 50 likes already. Woo. Dag nabbit.
I forgot I made money last night. Thanks to Arnold for the reminder.
What's that?
Arnold said that winning 4K last night is like bringing sand to the beach. I totally forgot I made money last night.
Yeah. Hey, you almost made more.
Yeah. Could have made more, except that asshole played the same lineup 4 times.
Let's talk about the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles. On the bump for the Yankee, where did my run sheet go? It just disappeared. Hold on a second. Hold on one moment here. Let me find this. There we are. All right, we're in business. Garrett Cole, Grayson Rodriguez. You buying into Grayson Rodriguez since he's been back?
I am. I'm excited about him.
Okay. You playing him today against the Yanks?
It's a nice price tag, 6,300.
Real cheap.
Yeah. I mean, he's always had talent. Like coming into the season, he was arguably the top prospect in baseball. Even when he came up and struggled, he was striking guys out. He's looked better in his 2 starts since coming back. He's kind of gotten into trouble the 3rd time through the order in both starts, but those were also tough starts against the Dodgers and I think Tampa. 6,300 is a mispricing. So
Yankees have not been good against righties either.
No, and they are likely to have Aaron Judge back, so that obviously makes things more difficult for Rodriguez. But overall this year, even despite his struggles early on, 26% strikeout percentage, also a 3.8 xFIP. So, don't let the 6.9 ERA dissuade you. He's been pretty unlucky in that regard. Only a 65.5% left on base percentage, 369 BABIP. He's been home run prone, but again, the stuff's looked better since coming back. When they sent him down to the minors, it was to work on his fastball command, stop 1, getting behind in counts, and 2, making mistakes in the strike zone. So far, it seems like he's been able to do that. So, he should not be $6,300 here.
No, and he's getting relatively high ownership, just given that it's such a big slate, right? We got him at 12.5%. I think that doesn't seem crazy.
No,
but it would be weird for him just to be super low owned on a slate where he's 6,300, no matter how many games are on it against the Yanks.
Right. Like he's the only cheap pitcher getting
exactly.
Really any ownership. Cutter Crawford's getting like 8%, but and deservedly so. Like there is good pitching on this slate. So if you have a lineup where, you have hitters that you want and you can like afford Kevin Gossman or something, like obviously you're going to do that instead. Zach Wheeler against the Pirates. But Grayson, from a talent standpoint, is probably like an 8K guy, and he is $6,300 tonight.
And also, look at the other cheap pitchers. Dane Dunning against San Diego, Brandon Williamson against the Dodgers, Touki Toussaint, Kyle Freeland, and J.P. Sears at Coors Field. There are Adrian Hauser, Xavier, not Curry. I could go down the list. Tommy Henry's got the Seattle Mariners. Drew Smyly, assuming he starts, has been awful lately. He's got St. Louis. Brady Singer against Minnesota. There just aren't other good cheap pitchers. I mean, not even remotely.
Yeah, JP Sears in Colorado. Like looking at the sub 7K guys, it's, Sears in Colorado. Smyly is underpriced, but he's facing the Cardinals. It's not like you're excited about that. Crawford's getting some ownership. Singer against Minnesota, Henry, Chirinos. There is a massive gap in talent between Grayson Rodriguez and every other pitcher priced around him.
Exactly. What about Garrett Cole against Baltimore on the other side?
He's interesting in tournaments just because he's getting 6% ownership. He's the most expensive pitcher on the slate, which is a little bit difficult to, justify given that Kevin Gossman's on this slate, but Cole does have a 27.5% K percentage, 3.67 xFIP. Obviously, he's a very good pitcher. It's a tough matchup against Baltimore. You have plenty of good hitters in this lineup, plenty of left-handed power in a park that plays up left-handed bats. It is a little bit weaker lineup than normal because Cedric Mullins is hurt and Aaron Hicks is on the injured list. So it's not quite as good, but dangerous matchup, 4.1 implied run total. Clearly, though, Garrett Cole is good enough where if you're getting him at 6% ownership as a contrarian play, that's fine.
God, nothing bothers me more than these NFL hype videos of guys running routes being like, this is his season. I'm seeing so much of that this year. Like, breakout season, look at this. He bulked up. It's crazy.
Yep.
Although
yeah,
Mac Hollins, Mac Hollins looks like a monster.
Who?
Mac Hollins. I'll show you after this.
He's become one of my favorite 20th round picks.
Yeah. Did you see
before whatever you're talking about?
But did you see how big he is right now? I'll send it to you.
I feel like I would prefer him to not be big because the entire reason I'm drafting him is for him to run fast and get deep.
Well, when you see this, you're gonna be like, "What in the heck?" It's crazy, dude. Anyway,
what are you on the DK Metcalf Skittles diet?
What's that? Yeah. I'm gonna send it to you. What are you doing with bats here? I'm gonna find it while you talk about bats for this game. It'll blow your mind.
They're both just kind of middle of the pack. Good park for left-handed power, not a good park for right-handed power. The Yankees have a 3.5% chance of being the top stack, 2% projected ownership. Baltimore coming in with a 2% chance of being the top stack and no ownership. They're good enough, assuming Judge is back. There's enough upside in both offenses that they're reasonable in large field tournaments, but neither one's a high probability spot. They both have tough matchups. So nothing too exciting on a 12-gamer.
All right, next up. Man, looking at that, I don't know how he's not on gear. I mean, he bulked up. Philly, Pittsburgh.
Did you send it to me?
I'm gonna.
Okay.
Let me just start this one off. Zach Wheeler, Mitch Keller, Philly minus 155 on the road in Pittsburgh. 8.5 run total here. What's the temperature look like? Because it's going to be like 95 in where I'm at today. 88, little chance of rain, but yeah, 88 degrees in Pittsburgh today at PNC Park. Obviously, that park is going to protect pitchers a little bit. But we can start with Zach Wheeler against Pittsburgh. He's getting 25% ownership right now. We have him only 13.5% top 2 play probability on DraftKings, but he is popular. He's sub 10K barely. And then on the other side, Mitch Keller's about 0.9% owned against the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, the Wheeler spot's pretty appealing. Nice park upgrade for him pitching in Pittsburgh instead of Philly. 9,800 is a very reasonable price tag. Pirates are a slightly below average offense against right-handed pitching. They strike out they strike out a lot. They're actually tied with Colorado and Seattle now for second highest K percentage against right-handed pitching this year, 102 WRC plus. So slightly above average in terms of production, but also a good strikeout spot. Wheeler just looks good. Park downplays power, which is nice. Overall this year, 27% K percentage for Wheeler, sub 5% walk percentage, about a 3.5 xFIP, 24% ownership. Certainly makes sense for him. Mitch Keller has been good this year as well, but a more difficult matchup with Philly. 25% K percentage, 3.72 xFIP. If you get to him just to be contrarian, fine, kind of like Garrett Cole, but not as good as Garrett Cole. But it's difficult to get to Keller, but Wheeler looks good.
What about bats? I mean, it is going to be warm. It's going to be hot here. Wheeler's been okay. I mean, it's not the best season for Wheeler. But at the same time, I mean, there's so many other games. How do you look at this one and really heavily prioritize bats on either side?
I don't really think you can. Both pitchers are good. Obviously you're more inclined to play Wheeler than Keller in DFS, but both pitchers are good enough. 4% chance of being the top stack for Philly. Pittsburgh coming in at dead last, 1.2% chance of being the top stack. Not an overly appealing game.
All right. Yeah, I sent you that video, by the way. Pretty intense. See how big he is?
Holy shit.
I know. Huge. Go look at a picture of him. Go look at a picture of him from when he was with the Raiders last year. And then compared to this, if you showed me that, I honestly didn't know who it was until Kyle Dvorak tweeted that, Mac Hollins. If he didn't do that, I wouldn't have known it was even him had I not seen that or the name on the back of his jersey.
Yeah, that is a massive difference.
Massive. It honestly looks like he put on 50 pounds in muscle.
Right. I mean, honestly, you look at it and it's like, wow, that is a big dude. I really want to know what he runs now because that's the only reason I've been drafting him.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah,
Like,
unless he's just
I don't want Mac Hollins, the possession receiver.
no, well, unless he's like right, unless he's the type of guy that just comes down with all these 50-50 balls because he's the Hulk now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he can still run whatever he ran before, like beat everybody deep, like yeah, if he can beat DK Metcalf, that would be cool. But
right. Angels in Toronto. Lucas Giolito. Angels were buyers, huh?
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Interesting decision.
Plus 165 on the road against Kevin Gossman. Kevin Gossman's just been a stud all season long. 32% ownership. He has the highest ownership on the slate. Not terribly surprising. It's not like he's priced, it's not like he has this exorbitant price point that you can't really get to at all. He's 10-8 on DraftKings. He's just a phenomenal strikeout pitcher. We've seen that subside a little bit from earlier in the season where he was just K'ing like 10 every start. But where are you at on 32%? A third of the field right now projected to own Gossman on DraftKings.
No real problem with it. 33% strikeout percentage for the season. He's less expensive than Cole. He's the second most expensive pitcher on the slate at 10.8K, but looks good. 21% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. The game is in Toronto instead of LA. So not that Toronto is a great pitcher's park, but more favorable than Anaheim is. So I think you like that. 3.5 implied run total. Gossman looks like one of the best pitching options.
He definitely does. And on the other side of Gossman, it's Lucas Giolito. It's a tough matchup coming into this one for your first start with the LA Angels. I don't know. What's their implied total right now? It's got to be
like 5.
Yeah. I guess it doesn't really matter because they still have him listed with the White Sox, don't they?
He's not in our top pitchers tool.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I think they still have him listed with the White Sox. Either way, you're not playing him at that price point regardless.
Yeah, I mean, tough strikeout matchup, good offense. I don't really see a need to get the Giolito here.
What about bats?
If you even could, but like you said, he's not in the player pool, doesn't look like.
I don't think so. I see Giolito Chicago White Sox. So.
Yeah. So I assume what's going to happen is at some point in the next couple of hours, you're going to get that big banner on DraftKings saying, do not play Lucas Giolito.
Yeah, exactly. And putting him in red or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. But again, I don't really think it matters. There's so many other pitchers that we can get to. You mentioned that there's some good pitching options. We already talked about Wheeler. We talked about Gossman. I don't think also that this is a spot, again, where hitters are going to be profoundly important. The Angels stack right now is getting 1% ownership. They have a 1.4% top stack probability. Toronto getting, 4% ownership? So they are getting a little bit here, but also negative leverage in the top stacks tool.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto does have a 5-run implied total. Giolito has had some power issues this year. Lefties in particular, 238 expected ISO to them, 179 to righties. I think Toronto is in a decent spot, just given the amount of good hitters they have. Brandon Belt individually at 3,200 is going to look pretty good. But it is a quality pitcher in Giolito. It is a big slate where eventually we're going to get to some bad pitching.
Einsteinium said, Laffy should know the Phillies suck in Pittsburgh historically. LOL. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't pay attention to any of that type of stuff at all. Cleveland.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah, no, you can't. Cleveland. Plus, it's like, okay, you have to find me a quantifiable reason why a Phillies team that has totally different players than another Phillies team years ago that had different players is bad in Pittsburgh.
Right. Like they don't like what's the sandwich restaurant? Perani, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe
that's maybe make some shit a lot.
Right, yeah. Perani Brothers Hangover.
Yeah, that's it. Possible. But I need a reason. Otherwise, and I think Einsteinian was joking anyway, but Cleveland and Chicago, Xavier Curry, Touki Toussaint, 10-run total in this game. So Cleveland, top stack probability, we've got him at 8.2 against Toussaint. That's the second highest on the slate, Adam. We have the White Sox further down the list at Wait, do we not have them in here? I thought I saw them earlier. Oh yeah, there they are. 3.9% ownership, 2.8% top play probability. So I don't think we need, depending on how much time you want to spend on pitching here, both teams have either above or around a 5-run implied total. It would be interesting to talk about a popular Cleveland team. Once again, a popular Cleveland team on this slate.
Yeah, I don't think the pitching is interesting here at all. Tuki Toussaint is 5,100. So like, I guess if you just want to hope to run good, like he's underpriced in the way that all starting pitchers are when they're 5K. Xavier Curry 9K is just an absurd price tag. Don't go there. But the bats are what look good here. Should be around 90 degrees. It's a top 5 home run park over the last 3 years. White Sox 4.6 implied run total, Cleveland 5.4. So one thing about Toussaint is that he's been up and down, over the last several years, but he has done a decent job of limiting power. If you go, so far this season, sub 100 expected ISO to righties, 147 to lefties. You go back to the start of 2021, 112 expected ISO to righties, 180 to lefties. So he doesn't give up a lot of power, and Cleveland doesn't have a lot of power, but it is a nice park upgrade for Cleveland. Jose Ramirez is always going to be a good play, but then also the Guardians are just cheap. Kwan 4,200, Jimenez 4K, Naylor 4,400. Everyone else is sub 3K. So there is value here. They do have a high implied run total. They're second in top stack percentage. They're second in stack score. They look like a good stack overall, even though I am a little concerned that Toussaint just doesn't typically give up a lot of power.
Our boy Humboldt, who's always hanging out in chat throughout every season, said the lineup generators for real, $840 night with the lineup from Stochastic. Love it, man. Makes me so happy to see that stuff, especially from guys that are always hanging out in chat. Congrats. Send a screenshot over to us, Stochastic Hall of Fame. It's $4.48 for the first week. That's all you need to know. Like, it's simulating thousands of lineups, throwing the bad ones out, and giving you all the good lineups, right? And you're going to get all different lineups. This doesn't mean you're going to come out when I say and just win every single night. That never happens with anybody. I mean, look at Adam. Adam went on a massive downturn, and then now, what, $113,000?
We don't talk about that.
What's that?
We don't talk about that.
Right, but you did talk about it. You've always been transparent about it. Like, you know what I mean? But saying if the process you believe is good, eventually it's going to pay off. And if it doesn't, your process is probably bad. But the lineup generator is giving you good lineups. You can see the optimal projection on all of them. You can see how chalky or contrarian it is. You can set your stack type. You can do all stacks, 4-4, 5-man stacks, however you want to play it. You can do chalky lineups, balanced, contrarian, all lineups, lock players, swap players, although I would suggest to not go crazy with doing that stuff, because then you're defeating the purpose of the tool in the first place and you're just building your own lineups. But yeah, you can discard whatever lineups you don't want. The ones you like, you can save them, upload them to CSV, drop them straight into DraftKings or FanDuel. It's the easiest lineup building process for the cheapest price that you're going to find. And we've just had a ton of winners lately. You've seen me throw the screenshots up there from guys winning 1,000, 1,500, 2,500, 5,000, 7,000 on dollar entries, right? On $5 entries. And that's the type of stuff you love to see, because when we designed and built this tool, it was designed for people that maybe weren't playing massive stakes. That's what our lineup simulator's for. Not massive stakes, but you're playing significant enough stakes to pay for the lineup simulator. The lineup generator is for someone that might not have a ton of time, that wants good lineups, that might not be playing with a huge bankroll, but wants good lineups and wants to build that bankroll. All of that is in play. And even if you're just someone that's playing mid stakes, it's huge for you as well. Link in the description and in chat. It's $4.48 for the first week. And as you guys already know, as I say it all the time, the lineup simulator link's down there if you're looking to step your game up a little bit further. And Stochastic plus Platinum, all of our tools 50% off for the first week or month. Link in the description and in chat. And my DMs are always open on Twitter if you have questions. I know some of this can be confusing, so happy to help you if you're looking to sign up. All right, let's talk about, well, did you want any White Sox bats today?
They're okay. It's still a good hitter's park, 4.6 implied run total. Curry's not likely to go deep into this game, so probably will essentially be a bullpen game, which isn't the most appealing, but 3% chance of being in the top stack, 3% ownership. I'll probably be around the field.
Okay. Washington and the New York Mets. Let's get into this a little bit. I think you had a great read on this whole game yesterday. Again,
yeah, I wish I had manually adjusted.
Yeah. But this wasn't you saying that you thought the Mets were going to play poorly, or that you thought Josiah Gray was going to go out there and throw 6 scoreless innings. But when it does, that it would make sense. And it was actually more likely to happen than the field was showing as far as ownership goes. And he ended up having a good game. The Mets ended up, not being the stack you wanted. But now you've got Mackenzie Gore and Max Scherzer. What are we doing with both of these guys today, the lefty and the righty on the mound?
I'm a little surprised that $7,300 Mackenzie Gore is only getting 5.5% ownership. It's a tough matchup. The Mets don't strike out a ton. They have good hitters, but you're talking about a pitcher that has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate. Mackenzie Gore's got a higher K percentage than Cole, than Scherzer, than Wheeler. 3.73 xFIP. It's not even like he's a bad pitcher that just gets strikeouts sometimes. Like, good strikeout pitcher, good overall pitcher. He does have some power issues. Weirdly, he's actually given up a lot of power to lefties this year. 198 expected ISO to lefties, 183 to righties. So, like, there are power issues, but 26.5% K percentage to righties, 33% to lefties. He's an interesting value guy. Like, there's pitching to pay up for, so that's a big reason why the ownership is so low. You're not. It's not a slate where you need to prioritize Mackenzie Gore against the Mets, but the upside he gives you at that salary and low ownership is certainly appealing if you need to pay down in a lineup. At least you're not getting. It's not like you're going to your typical $7,300 pitcher where you're like, well, this guy strikes out 19% of hitters. Let's hope he has a good game. Mackenzie Gore's got some of the best strikeout stuff on the slate. So from a salary standpoint and an ownership standpoint, he is kind of interesting. On the other side, Scherzer's getting 29%. Good matchup against Washington in terms of an offense that isn't very good. 89 WRC plus on their active roster against right-handed pitching. They do have the second lowest strikeout percentage, though, at 18.5%. Only Cleveland has struck out less against right-handed pitching. So Scherzer looks good, but again, not a great strikeout matchup. He's third in top 2 pitcher percentage. He is second in ownership. I don't really have any problems with it, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind turning some of that into like lower owned guys.
What about Mets bats today? Only 3% ownership. They don't look great as far as value score goes in the top stacks tool, but they do have a 5.2 implied total today against Mackenzie Gore.
They're fine. It feels like that's kind of been like the entire slate so far, but
yeah,
they're okay. Gore's a good pitcher, but he does give up power. Like I was saying, the Mets are a good offense. The game is in New York, which is not a good hitter's park. They have a 5 implied run total. They're relatively cheap outside of basically Lindor and Alonso. So yeah, Mets are fine. I'm not, it's a spot where Gore gives up power. The Mets have good hitters, so they look okay, but it's not a spot where you're saying like, oh, the Mets look great against Mackenzie Gore because he's not good or whatever. Like he is good.
Well, and to your point, there are 21 teams with a top stack probability. So the likelihood that they are the top stack, 21 teams between 1% and 4%, 1.5%
right.
and 4%.
Right. Yeah. Like if you're looking at the top stacks tool and you sort by top stack percentage, you have Minnesota at 10%, Cleveland at 8%, a couple teams, between like 6 and 7, but there's a total of 6 teams above 4.5%,
which is crazy.
Right.
Yeah. 7.
It makes for a fun slate in that like you can kind of just spread out your exposures and get to a bunch of different teams. You don't have to worry about, that one team that looks amazing, but it makes a pain in the ass to talk about because you just keep being like, yeah, I don't know. It's fine.
Exactly. And Atlanta, if we talk about them right now against Milwaukee, they are one of the teams that does have a top stack probability north of 4.5%. However, it's nothing crazy. It's 5.8. They are the 6th highest in that category among top stack probability behind Colorado, the Dodgers, Oakland, of course, a Coors Field game, Cleveland, and Minnesota, getting only 3% aggregate ownership here. But I think a lot of that, and you can speak to this now, is because they are tied for the lowest value score as well. If you're paying for Atlanta against Adrian Hauser, if you're playing Atlanta, I should say, against Adrian Hauser, you definitely have to be willing to pay for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so difficult to get a 5-man stack where you're paying at least $5,600 for the top 5 guys in the lineup, and 3 of them are over 6K or 6K or higher. The bottom of the order is cheaper. Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris, 4,300 or less. So you can mix those guys in to offset some salary. One thing I do like here, though, they're really expensive, And if you go to the Braves, you're kind of going to have to pay down for pitching. It's going to make it very difficult to get to those top end guys like Gausman, Scherzer, whoever. But from an upside standpoint, a lineup that has a 5-man Atlanta stack and like Mackenzie Gore plus Grayson Rodriguez, that is a massive ceiling. Like you can stack Atlanta with a pitcher that has a 26% K percentage, another pitcher that has a 26% K percentage and a 28% K percentage, and get decent one-offs because they're so cheap. Like from an upside standpoint, that's a really appealing approach.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely works out. Now, what about the fact that Hauser just doesn't allow a ton of power?
Yeah, it's kind of twofold for me. Like he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he's very good at limiting power, like you said. 130 expected ISO to righties, 151 to lefties. But when you talk about a team like Atlanta that just has the quality of hitters that they do, even though Hauser is good at getting weak contact and limiting power, it's just really hard for me to care about that when you're just saying, hey, we're going to let Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, we're going to let these guys hit the ball and see what happens. Like that's, to me, even though Hauser is good at limiting power generally, it just screams like he's going to get lit up by these guys that are amazing at hitting for power.
Yeah, that's true. All right. It's true. Like as good as he has been at limiting power, he's still not great. And if they're making contact, the likelihood is that it could get ugly for him quickly. In Atlanta, it's going to be around 90 degrees there today as well. How about Yanni Chirinos?
I'm good.
Do you like Milwaukee bats though today?
I had no idea Yanni Chirinos was even on the Braves.
I think they just claimed him. I think
I thought he was on Tampa like this year.
He was.
Okay.
Tampa DFA'd him.
Okay.
And I think Atlanta recently claimed him. Yeah.
He was good. He was fun for like that stretch where when openers first became a thing and he'd be like 0.5% owned at 6K pitching 5 innings in relief.
I remember that. Yeah.
Hit him and Ryan Yarbrough.
Like 3 years ago when they first started using the heavy. Yep. Yeah, and it was Tampa that really started doing that a lot. Like
Tampa was the first one to do it. And like nobody, content didn't adjust to it. Nobody adjusted to it. So you could just, it was like a legitimate edge where you could just be like, wait, today's the Yanni Chirinos day following, whoever their opener was and get him into ownership. But those days are long gone. Don't really see the need to get to him here. It's a good strikeout matchup, but 2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I'm good.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look good here. Do you like Milwaukee bats though?
Yeah, they look decent. 236 expected ISO to lefties this year, 210 to righties. Milwaukee is another team with a 4% chance of being the top stack, 3% ownership. Yelich at 5,400 is fine. Contreras and Adames are good. Sal Frelick, not a great power hitter, but he's only 3,400. The problem with Milwaukee is just that after Yelich, Contreras, Adames, you run out of hitters that you want.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like they're still. I don't mean that as far as like you can't play other hitters in DFS because like they're cheap, whatever. But you run out of like names where you can be like, oh, this is a good spot for so and so because most of them can't really hit.
Right. At that point, you're just finishing out a stack with whoever.
Right. The guys that you want are Yelich, Contreras, Adames.
Hey, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. We're almost at 100 thumbs up on a morning show on Friday. We're 5 away from 100. It's like some type of record for an MLB show. Minnesota and Kansas City. All right, now we're getting into it a little bit. Sonny Gray, Brady Singer, Minnesota, top stack score right now, top stack probability, number 1 on the slate against Singer, 8.5%. Stack score in the top stack tool. I mentioned our Stochastic Plus Platinum with all of our tools, ownership and top stack tool, top pitchers tool, not just baseball, but football coming up, MMA, PGA, NASCAR, tennis, golf, like everything. We got tools for everything if you're getting the 50% off. But that's, if you're wondering where these references are coming from, it's our pitching tools, our top stack, our top pitchers tool on Stochastic. They rank number 1 in stack score, number 1 in top stack probability. And how about this, Adam? The Minnesota Twins bats also ranked number 1 in top value. So they are owned about as much as any team not named the Cleveland Guardians. But across the board on this specific tool, they look phenomenal against Brady Singer in Kansas City.
Yeah. Singer is not a total gas can. Like, he's a talented pitcher. Really surprising that he's been as bad as he has this year, just because I thought he would take a step forward after last year. But even so, 18.8% K percentage, only a 4.36 xFIP. He's not a horrible pitcher, but you have a lot of left-handed power, cheap left-handed power here. Singer's allowed a 195 expected ISO, 364 expected WOBA, two lefties, and this team is just essentially free. Byron Buxton's 5,200, Polanco's 4,400, Correa's 45. Everybody else is 3,300 or less. So you're getting a team that has a lot of power. They have the highest top stack percentage. They have the highest top value percentage. Needless to say, they have the highest stack score. They're just going to look good here.
Yeah, they do. And they look good across the board with the tool. Just also seeing the value on this team too, especially given the matchup. Now, opposite Brady Singer, you've got Sonny Gray going 4.7 implied total still for Kansas City. So it's not especially low. Sonny Gray not getting much ownership. He's north of 9K. His leash has been oddly short throughout a lot of the season, which is somewhat concerning. Is there any justification or merit to getting the Sonny Gray here just at low ownership? Or is the ceiling just not high enough right now on him?
I'm kind of surprised he's not getting more ownership.
Okay.
It's a good matchup against KC. This is a spot where we've just been streaming pitchers pretty much all season long, and definitely recently. Like, he went 6 innings last time out. He only threw 88 pitches, but he went 6 innings. He threw 101 the start before that. He went 6. Like, his last 5 starts, 102 pitches in 6 2/3 against Atlanta, 87 pitches against Baltimore, but he went 6 innings, 91 pitches against Baltimore, but he went 6 innings, and he also gave up 6 runs. 5 2/3, 101 pitches, 88 pitches, but he went 6 innings. Like, earlier this year, there was a stretch where he was getting pulled at like 75 pitches after 4. And it was like, what the hell?
You're right, though. You're right. This is a big change. Right.
It was like, what the hell is going on with Sonny Gray? But now, yeah, some of his pitch count totals aren't what you want, but it's a lot easier. It's easily explained by he went 6 innings and they just turned it over to the bullpen. So the hitting weather is nice. It's like 100 degrees. The wind's blowing out. You have a 4.4 implied run total for KC. That's a reason that he's not popular, but I'm still surprised that he's only getting 2% ownership. This is a KC team, their active roster against right-handed pitching this year has a 24.4% K percentage. That's 6th highest. 83 WRC plus is the lowest against right-handed pitching, tied with Colorado. At the very least, this is somebody where if you're playing, a popular offense, say you're playing the Twins, Sonny Gray is a good contrarian option.
You've sold me on it. I mean, look, over those starts that you mentioned, right? So it's actually the last month. It's the last 6 starts he's made where you've seen that pitch count, because remember, before that, it was 79, 90, 76, 79. And you and I talked about that a lot. That was concerning, no doubt, especially at his price. But over this stretch, he's been throwing a lot more pitches. I will say, strikeout rate only at 20.4% over that stretch, which is around league average. But I guess if you're factoring in the matchup against the Royals, 6th highest strikeout rate on their active roster versus righties, 83 WRC plus this season, which ranks dead last in baseball along with the Colorado Rockies, and a 147 ISO, which is also right at the bottom of the league ahead of only a few teams. It is objectively a really good matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, so like, and again, like, I don't think he's a priority just because you do have other good pitchers on the slate. But
you just think 2% is low.
Yeah, I can't. Like, there is no way that Zach Wheeler, Max Scherzer, even Kevin Gausman, like, they're not 10 to 15 to 1 favorites against Sonny Gray.
Nah, I'm glad you brought it up. It's a good point.
And his strikeout numbers are down this year, but you're still talking about a 23.5% K percentage, 3.81 xFIP. He's not the Sonny Gray that we've had in the past where he was, a 28, 29% K guy, but he's still good.
Yeah. No, you're right. If Sonny Gray was 8,500, I wonder how much higher owned he would be, or like 8,300 or whatever.
Yeah, no, you're right. And all of this being said, everybody watching this show knows that I'm probably just going to end up with more Kansas City than anything here, but
yeah, probably. But no, I think he makes some good points on Sonny Gray for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and also anybody that's been watching shows for a while knows that I'm a little bit biased. But
do you
I,
like Kansas City bats at all? If we're being serious,
do I like them? No. Am I going to play them? Probably.
yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as always. They're not good, but Bobby Witt is a high upside shortstop, which those are hard to find. Salvador Perez is a high upside catcher. Those are hard to find. And then you're getting a $3,600 leadoff hitter in Michael Garcia. You're getting a $2,900 three hitter in MJ Melendez. Nick Prado is cheap. Isbell is cheap. Massey is free. Like, you can build. Kansas City is like the team where you can just put lineups together where you're like, all right, well, KC's not going to come through that often, but when they do, this team is loaded because everything around it is fantastic. So that's why they show up for me so much. That's the case again today. But, again, I don't like the matchup against Gray. There are obviously a lot of other offenses on the slate to get to, but the same reasons that I like KC apply today.
What do you make of the Tampa Bay and Houston pitching matchup where you've got McClanahan at 10-4? I mean, that's pretty prohibitive against the Houston Astros. I don't think you're going to get much of a disagreement there. And then Christian Javier on the other side getting 4.5%. He's at 8,600. We had seen some rough starts from Javier. These are two solid enough pitchers in a game with a total that's sitting right now at 8.5, which is surprisingly one of the lower ones once you get into late July and early August. But Javier has not had, dude, he hasn't had a great start since May. I'm not
Javier
even
might be the most, like, if you're calling like DraftKings pricing a rating system, Javier might be the most overrated starting pitcher in baseball.
I totally agree. This guy was sitting north of 10K for like 8 straight starts.
Right.
And at no point in any of those starts could you justify that salary.
Right. The analysis on Javier, like, and he was popular for a lot of those because it was like, he'd be facing Oakland or whatever. But like the analysis was always just like, well, he's facing a shitty team. There's nothing about him that's good. 22% K percentage is fine. 5.04 xFIP, 1.24 home runs per nine. The point here for me being, I don't view this as like, oh, wow, his salary is really dropping. Let's jump on that, because I haven't been able to explain why his salary was where it was for the last 3 months.
You know what his ground ball rate is?
Low.
Yeah. And I know he's always been a fly ball pitcher, but that becomes more problematic when you're not striking 30% of batters out like you had in the past, right? Like a fly ball pitcher, a lot of times you can minimize damage just by missing a ton of bats. But his K rate last year was 33%, right? In 30 games, 25 starts, 36 games, only 9 starts, but 101 innings the season prior to that, 31%, 33% last year, 22% this year. That doesn't jive all that well with a 26% ground ball rate, 55% fly ball rate on the season. That's a lot.
Yeah, and to your point too, still has a 30% K percentage against righties, but a 246 expected ISO. He's given up 1.24 home runs per 9 this year, so it's not like he's been great at limiting home runs anyway, but his expected ISO to righties is nearly 90 points higher than his actual ISO allowed. Lefties, 196 actual and 196 expected, but lefties are only striking out 15.8% of the time. Give me some Brandon Lau, some Wander Franco, some Luke Raley, and then obviously, like, you can get to a Rosarena, Paredes, Ramirez, Josh Lowe, like even Jose Siri. He doesn't get on base, but he hits home runs. I think Tampa is pretty interesting in tournaments. Only a 4.3 implied run total. They're another team with like a 3.5% chance of being the top stack, but 1.5% ownership for Tampa against a pitcher with this kind of power issues is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Jose Siri has a 302 ISO versus righties.
Yeah, I had, this is one of those where, like, especially now that, like, my whole DFS process is essentially automated and it's all just copying and pasting data. Like, I had no idea what Siri was doing this year until the Tampa Bay Baltimore series recently, where he homered. And I think, they said it was, his like 20th home run or whatever it was. And I was just like, Jose Siri has 20 home runs. And I looked, dude. Yeah, and it's just like, he doesn't get on base, but the dude just sells out for power. And when he makes contact, it goes far.
He has a 389x ISO against fastballs and a 311x ISO against sliders. He's just crushed right-handed sliders and fastballs all season long.
Yeah, he also was the one. It was one of the most ridiculous, like, just home runs I've seen. Fujinami made his debut for the Orioles, and so you have this guy coming over from Oakland. He's going from, like, a terrible team to the middle of a playoff race. He's nervous. His biggest issue is that he walks a lot of guys. Like, he's coming in the game and just throwing a first pitch fastball. And so he throws it 99, like, letter high, pretty much outside corner. It was a good pitch. And Siri just, like, sells out and just launches it. Like, there was no doubt in his mind he's getting a fastball. And he's swinging, like, about the time it left his hand.
And it was gone.
Oh, yeah, just like I saw where the pitch was and I saw him hit it. And I'm like, there's no way that's a home run based on where that pitch was. But it was just like, if he had thrown him like a splitter or something, it would have been probably like one of the most ridiculous looking swings you've ever seen.
The reason you probably had no idea that he was hitting for that much, and the only reason I do is because I was looking in the home run props a little while back, and I started digging into like a pitch mix for it was actually Luis Medina, who of course went out there and shut him down. But looking at his pitch mix and opponents, I'm like, oh my God, dude, Siri, this whole team at the time was crushing right-handed fastballs and sliders, and Siri was at the top of the list, and it was shocking to me. But the problem is, or not the problem, but the reason is you probably just weren't expecting a guy at the back of the order to be hitting 20 home runs.
Yeah, and just kind of like a random guy that, like, he was, a fourth outfielder for Houston, and then now he's like a fourth outfielder for the Rays.
Yeah, weird.
But, and again, it's like what we were saying. When you look at his expected numbers this year, 321 expected WOBA against righties. That's, like, not good. But 246 expected ISO. Like, from a DFS standpoint, especially at $3,500, if you just tell me the guy's either going to get me 0 points or he's going to hit a home run and a double, like, that works.
Also, 20 home runs, but 42 RBIs is hilarious.
That's kind of surprising given that he's on a good offense.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that's normally what you see from, like, your garbage offenses.
Yeah. But yeah, 42 on a team that has scored, particularly early in the season, a ton of runs. He's got 7 stolen bases too. Anything else you want to get to for this game? Houston bats or anything?
No, I mean, Houston's in the more difficult matchup for sure. You mentioned it that, it's very, very tough to get to McClanahan at 10-4 against Houston, but it's tough to get to the Astros as well. They do have Alvarez and Altuve back, so you're getting a very good Houston lineup now. You can always get to them and just say, like, hey, they're really good. Let's hope they score a bunch of runs. But honestly, to this size, I don't really anticipate targeting against McClanahan.
All right, so this next game, we don't have a line yet. Jordan Montgomery is going to start for St. Louis, but for the Cubs, it's possible that Smiley doesn't start. I had read, and I can pull it up here. It was actually on DraftKings. Smiley's not certain to start Friday against the Cardinals. Tony Andracki of Marquee Sports Network reports 34-year-old lefty was used in bulk relief with Michael Fulmer operating as the Cubs opener on what would have been Smiley's last turn through the rotation on July 27th versus St. Louis. It sounds like manager David Ross is considering doing something similar for Friday's game at Busch Stadium. So I don't see him listed yet officially. We have him in the tools, which makes sense because at this point you just have to assume it's going to be Smiley. So I guess we can operate under the assumption that it's going to be Smiley, but I don't believe he is confirmed yet. At least he wasn't less than an hour ago when I put this together.
Yeah, and if it is Smiley, it's just a situation where at 5,700, he's an okay point per dollar value, but it's not a good matchup against the Cards. He's not a particularly good pitcher for the season. He's striking out 20.1% of hitters, 4.8 xFIP. Like, it's just another one of these guys where, is he better than $5,700 if he's starting? Sure. But you also have Grayson Rodriguez for $600 more. Just give me Grayson Rodriguez.
What about Montgomery?
Decent option. Not a great strikeout pitcher, but not bad. 21.7% K percentage for the year, 3.95 xFIP, less than 1 home run per 9 innings. Right now, he is pulling 7% ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. He's fine. I'm not going out of my way to get to him. I prefer getting to the pay up guys. And I also, if I can't get to that Gausman, Scherzer, Wheeler tier, I do like saving money off of Montgomery and just targeting the cheap strikeouts with Gore and Rodriguez. So that's sort of the issue you run into there. But he's a decent pitcher. I think 7% ownership is pretty much correct.
Assuming Smiley's out there, how about St. Louis bats today? It obviously has been a bit of a tough go for him. He's been allowing a lot of power recently too. 3 multi-home run games over his last 7 appearances, which isn't great. So there have been some power issues there. 17 home runs allowed and 103 innings pitched is, this isn't Lance Lynn power, obviously, but would St. Louis at home be a spot that you're looking to get to as Smiley's on the mound?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Don't know what the weather looks like, but I assume it's going to be hot in St. Louis because that's what happens during the summer. So ball carries better. Goldschmidt, Arenado, O'Neill, Walker, plenty of right-handed power
it says
here.
99 degrees right now.
So that's hot.
Make sure that's accurate.
Paul DeJong, cheap shortstop option with some power. So, we don't have a line yet, so can't exactly quantify how they look, but it looks good for the Cards.
Let's see what it's going to be at first pitch. Yeah, excessive heat warning. It's 90 degrees already.
Yeah. I walked. I mean, it's just hot everywhere. Like I walked out on my balcony earlier, and it was at like 9:30, and it was just like, oh, cool. It's like 90 degrees.
Yeah, I took the dog for a real early walk today, and it was 75 by the time I got outside. It's going to be 97 at first pitch.
Yeah, and I assume humid because St. Louis is like the East Coast as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's not great. I wouldn't want to play in that.
Yeah, so, like St. Louis gets essentially like DC weather.
What do you think about these Cubs going up against a quality but not elite lefty in Montgomery?
They're not a spot I really want to get to. You don't have a ton of power in this lineup. The biggest selling point is that you do have some cheap bats that are supposed to be good. Suzuki 3,100, Happ 3,300. But it's a pretty tough sell on a slate that does have plenty of weak pitching. Sub 100 expected ISO to lefties for Montgomery, 174 to righties. Again, if you're getting to like a $3,100 Suzuki, $3,300 Happ, that's fine. But it's tough to really want to get to the Cubs. On a side note, did you see the Michaelis throwing at Happ highlights from last night?
No.
Just like one of the more absurd throwing at hitters things. It's why Michaelis got ejected.
You mean like one of the more blatant?
Oh, yeah. Blatant and just dumb. Like, so Ian Happ swung, and on his backswing, he hit Wilson Contreras in the head. Contreras leaves the game, and Pitching Ninja has it. You can see, so like Michaelis comes in to check on Contreras and ends up just staring at Ian Happ, and Ian Happ's just staring right back at him. And so then the next pitch from Michaelis, Contreras leaves the game. First pitch after that from Michaelis is like high and inside to Ian Happ. Next pitch, like as Michaelis releases the pitch, Ian Happ just turns his back. Like he knows it's coming. And Michaelis just hits him right in the middle of the back. Michaelis gets ejected. Happ just walks to first base.
Damn. All right, I'm watching it now. So all right, here we go. Oh, yeah. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, it was a 94 mile it's a 94 mile per hour pitch too.
Oh yeah. And then like Cardinals fans are like, how's he get ejected there? It's like, well, he missed the first time. Typically umpires will give you like one pitch.
Yeah.
Right. Like he missed the first time, and it was so obvious that he was throwing at him that Ian Happ literally just turned his back to him as he threw the ball.
He hit him in the ass, by the way, not the back.
Yeah, but like the way Happ just moved, like he moved like you're about to get hit by a pitch, but before the pitch was even thrown.
Yeah, I know. Mike, fast forward it to keep going. Right, go back. Keep going. Right here. Here it is. Oh yeah, right in the ass. That didn't look like 94 miles per hour though.
Yeah, it looked like he threw it slower.
Look, it said 94, but didn't that look a little slower than that?
I mean, I thought so when I watched it live.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or not live, but when I saw the replay the first time.
I hadn't seen that. That's good.
No, I mean, my favorite still, I tweeted about it last night. It was back when Machado was on the Orioles. Similar thing, backswing, he hit the catcher. He didn't apologize to the catcher, which pissed off Oakland. So then the next pitch, they throw at him, and they like throw behind him, and they miss. So then the next pitch, it's just like, a slider down and in, and he just throws his bat at the pitcher. He didn't aim very well, though, so it actually almost hit the third baseman. But yeah, he got suspended for a while, but it was entertaining.
Yeah. Tempers flare sometimes in baseball. Oakland and Colorado.
That's interesting. Foul said Happ and Michaelis are friends. That actually makes a lot more sense because I don't know if you could see it in the video Mike showed, but like they were literally just standing. Like Michaelis is basically in the right-handed batter's box while he's checking on Contreras, and Happ is, over behind the left-hand batter's box, and they're just staring at each other. And then he goes out there and throws at him.
You think it's like a mutual, I got to do this, right?
Like if they actually are friends, it makes more sense. Cause like when I was watching it was just like, that's weird. Like there wasn't any jawing or anything. It was just like them staring at each other. Like, okay, we both know what's about to happen.
Like, in a mob movie where he's about to kill him, but they're buddies. And he's like, how it goes.
When they kill Wallace in The Wire.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you understand how this works.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, get it over with. That's what happened. Except he didn't die. He just took a baseball to the ass.
Right.
Let's talk about Oakland and Colorado. Thank you, Mike.
My Michaelis teams died.
What?
My Michaelis teams died.
Yeah. Well, sure. We got the line now. So who do we have starting confirmed? Is it confirmed Sears? I'm assuming it is. Because earlier it wasn't. But I'm assuming it's JP Sears going for Oakland. 11-run total. Colorado slight favorites at home. I'll tell you right now. Confirmed Sears. We still don't have anybody confirmed. But we do have a line. So my guess is that it's going to be JP Sears here. How much of both of these arms are you getting to today at Coors Field?
Not much. I mean, Sears has good strikeout stuff, and the Rockies aren't good, but it's not a slate where I think you really need to take that risk. If this were a different slate with limited pitching, I could see it, but it's just so hard for me to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to take $6,200 Sears in Coors instead of $6,300 Grayson Rodriguez in not Coors.
Yeah, no, it's a tough spot to get to for sure. But bats here, 11-run total for Coors is actually kind of low.
I am curious to see, now that we have a line, where Oakland moves to in the top stacks tool. Right now we have them with a 6% chance of being the top stack. That's fourth highest. We have, obviously they're really cheap. They're fourth highest in stack score. You could see that come up a bit now that we have an actual line. It's not a bad spot by any stretch. They're in Coors Field, huge park upgrade for them. Kyle Freeland is not good, but he's not the worst pitcher the Rockies have. At the very least, it's a very good value stack. Brent Rooker at 3,800 in particular is going to look good, but you have Zach Galoff at 4,600, Jordan Diaz only 3,100, Laureano's only 3,200. There's a lot of value here. So I am interested to see exactly how ownership and the top stack percentage moves now that we have a line.
And we can check the Sims tool out at the end of this show just to see where it comes in at. Do you think it's going to be, do you think we'll have an issue with that, with the whole Giolito thing? And
so Giolito shouldn't matter since he's not in the player pool. The Oakland projections are potentially just wonky because we didn't have a line. Looking at the top stacks tool, it seems like we have a reasonable projection on them. It's not like the other day where Boston was just like breaking the slate for no reason. So like I think where they're at right now is reasonable. So I think we'll get a good feel for it with the Sims tool, but it certainly could move up or down a little bit now that we have a line.
Yeah, we'll take a quick look at it at the end for sure. But you're right, Freeland hasn't been that bad. 4.76 xFIP at home is actually, well, no, I should say 20% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate. Just looking at how he's performed at home isn't that bad. I mean, he's obviously not good, but he's not, like you said, the worst on the roster. Do you think a lot of, and I know you're not hand building these lineups, but to your point a second ago, do you think a lot of how you play this Coors game is really just going to come down to how much of the field is going heavy on two bad teams because they're in a good park?
Yeah, but it's also not really out of control, at least right now. Again, like I'm interested to see what happens once we have, actual projections, but 9% aggregate ownership for a team as cheap as Oakland in Coors Field.
That's true.
And for Colorado, where are they? So Colorado, I think, is probably being under projected right now since we didn't have a line. We have them fourth from the bottom in top stack percentage. That's just not right. 2% chance of being the top stack, 3% ownership. Like if that actually holds, give me as much Colorado as I can get. Give me the 1%, 2% owned team in Coors Field against JP Sears and a bad bullpen. But I do think that's going to come up.
Yeah, me too. Right now, my guess would be that the Sims tool would be giving us a lot of Colorado stacks as well.
Probably. The only way it wouldn't be is if the reason that we're not projecting a lot of ownership is because we're not projecting them to do well.
Yeah, like the totals.
Because like obviously that's part of the ownership projections is how is the industry projecting these guys. So
yep. Texas and San Diego, Dane Dunning, Joe Musgrove. All right, so Dane Dunning's getting no ownership here whatsoever. And then Joe Musgrove is getting around 20, close to 20%. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 pitchers at 20+% ownership. Then you have a 19 on Musgrove, 15 on Webb, 12 on Grayson Rodriguez. Then everyone else is 7% or less. So really scattered about, just bad pitching options in a lot of these games. Either they're too expensive, they're not good, they've got a tough matchup, a bad park, whatever it is. But Musgrove right now is the 5th highest owned pitcher on the slate against this Texas team.
yeah, that's surprising to me.
He's expensive too.
You're not getting a discount. He's a good but not great pitcher. I mean, why is Joe Musgrove 24.5% K percentage, 3.7 xFIP? He's good, but why is he getting so much more ownership than Sonny Gray, who has basically the same numbers and is facing Kansas City instead of the Rangers?
I don't know.
Like the park's better. It's bad pitching weather for Gray in KC. It's 100 degrees. The park itself is not great for hitters, but with this kind of hitting weather, it's fine. San Diego, it's 70 degrees like always, and it's a good pitcher's park. So like, I understand why Musgrove projects better, just, based on that 3.5 implied run total for Texas compared to 4.4 for KC. I just don't, from a range of outcome standpoint, I don't totally get it.
Me neither. Here's what I will say though. Over at Sleeper, where they just introduced their new Pick'em app, their new Pick'em format, where you can up to 100 extra entry, they've got a Joe Musgrove play today that is over a half a strikeout. So you don't have to love him at 9,700, right? I think it's tough to, as a matter of fact. But his strikeout prop on traditional books today is at 6.5. You're getting it at 0.5. 1 strikeout. They say it's a pick on sale. Usually that's like a 20% discount at a lot of these pick'em sites. This is a 92% discount. It's as close to a free square as you could possibly get for Joe Musgrove. So if you're not on Sleeper yet, take the free money when it comes your way. Number 1, get this in your cards. Number 2, use the link in the description and in chat. It's getting you first match deposit bonus, 100% up to $100. So if you put $100 in, you now have 200. If you put 20 in, you now have 40. You put 50 in, you got 100. No better time to do it than now. This is the same thing as shopping odds around at other books or taking advantage of bonus bets, right? Or taking, anything like free entries that you have on DFS sites. This is as close as it gets. It's a free square. You're plugging it in. Your expected ROI shoots through the roof, and you're getting it from 6.5 down to 0.5. You need 1 strikeout from Musgrove, and you've already got a big part of your card covered. You can up to 100x. They've got the awesome dynamic pricing, so you can actually pick props like home runs and stolen bases and all this other stuff that you can't do on other pick'em sites. And they're matching your deposit 100% up to $100. So if you haven't done it yet, the best day to do it is right now. This is one of the biggest actual discounts, or the biggest I've seen Sleeper do. 92% on Joe Musgrove. Check that out. All right.
I did find the answer to why Musgrove is getting so much more projected ownership. Looking at our projections, we have Musgrove like 1.5, 2 points ahead of Sonny Gray, which to me seems completely correct and how it should be. But I looked at another source that I know people use, and the gap is much bigger in their projection in favor of Musgrove. So that's why the ownership is there. And I agree that Musgrove is the better option. The implied run total, gives you that. But from a range of outcome standpoint, at the very least, in large field tournaments, say you have a popular team, say that Coors ends up being popular and you go there, or the Twins are popular and you go there. At the very least, from a range of outcome standpoint, Sonny Gray is giving you the same sort of upside that Joe Musgrove does.
Absolutely. What about bats here against Dane Dunning?
Sure. Obviously good hitters here. Dunning's not a great pitcher. The park isn't ideal, but you have plenty of power. 180 expected ISO to righties with a 16.5% K percentage for Dunning this year. Sub 14% K percentage to lefties with a 153 expected ISO. Ha-Seong Kim, Fernando Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts, Cronenworth, cheap Campusano at catcher. Like, the Padres look pretty good from a ceiling standpoint. Only a 4.5 implied run total because of the park, but the upside is nice. They are relatively expensive, 3% chance of being the top stack. So again, they're just lumped in with like all of these mid-range teams. But going back to range of outcomes, when the Padres do well with these hitters, it's a lot of fantasy points as opposed to like some other teams where it's like, oh, they scored 8 runs, but they just singled and doubled the entire game. And so they're fine, but not great. When the Padres score 8, 9 runs, you just have a higher probability of it being, oh, Machado homered twice, Tatis homered twice, whatever it may be.
All right. So this next game was Seattle and Arizona. We're definitely going to talk about bats here, but first, anything you want to touch on with Logan Gilbert and Tommy Henry today?
Logan Gilbert's a lot better than Tommy Henry.
Yes, he is.
But
still very low owned at 9K though.
Yeah, and he should be. He's another one where if you want to say that he has the same range of outcomes as Joe Musgrove, sure, or at least a similar range of outcomes, but it is a tough matchup against Arizona. So like when you compare Gray to Musgrove, you at least can say that Gray has clearly the better matchup. Gilbert, it's more like, well, he's not as good a strikeout pitcher, and he's also got a bad matchup, but he's low owned. So I think he's comparable to Gray. They're basically they're right next to each other in top 2 pitcher percentage. He's a viable pivot from Musgrove, but Musgrove does project better.
Tommy Henry on the other side, though, 16% strikeout rate, 1.3 home runs per 9 allowed this year. Seattle second, or they are second in, I think, owners. No, let me pull this up. I thought, second in top value in our top stacks tool right now. They're like 7th or so in top stack probability. Yeah, they're top 7 there, and 8.9% ownership. So slight negative leverage there, but Seattle does look pretty decent. They're 4th in stack score in the top stacks tool as well against Henry in a better park than Seattle, playing this one in Arizona. What are your thoughts on Seattle? I know it's a team that you've been pretty fascinated with recently just because they strike out a ton, but they have a ton of power. And
yeah, I mean, I can stack Seattle the rest of the year and I'll still be ahead on Seattle stacks. So
pretty much.
9% ownership. There's basically 4 teams getting ownership today, at least right now. Minnesota, Cleveland, Seattle, and Oakland. I don't really have any issue with it. 13% chance of being the top value stack, 5% chance of being the top scoring stack. They are still inexpensive. Julio Rodriguez is 5,200. Every other hitter in their projected lineup, Cal Raleigh 3,900. Every hitter other than that is 3,400 or less. I mean, you're getting a $3,300 Teoscar Hernandez, $3,200 Eugenio Suarez. If Tommy Murphy's in the lineup, he's 2,400. Ty Francis, 3K. This team is just so cheap. And so even against good pitching, I've been stacking them for the reason that they have power, they're cheap. And if you just happen to get a game where Seattle does well, the rest of your lineup is just loaded around them. Same thing applies here, but you're not even facing a particularly good pitcher. Henry hasn't been quite as bad this year as I guess I expected him to be, but still a 162 expected ISO, only a 17% K percentage to righties. This is a pretty scary team to allow them to hit the ball. And they're getting out of Seattle. Arizona, not the same super hitter friendly park that it used to be, but Seattle plays its home games in the most pitcher friendly park in baseball. So it's a park upgrade for them just by definition. 4.8 implied run total. Certainly happy to get there.
We got 2 games to get to. And I don't even know if you want to talk much about Arizona bats here. They just look pretty awful across the board.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Arizona goes, I think they're just one of those teams where they're good. They have obvious upside because they have power in the middle of their lineup. They also have stolen base upside. But Logan Gilbert's a good pitcher. It's not like you're looking at them saying, hey, like this is a good spot for Arizona. You're just looking at them saying, hey, they're not going to be popular and they have a bunch of talent. So, in large field tournaments, it's not like it's a terrible idea to get to them at sub 1% ownership, but you also just have so many teams on this slate pulling, 5-6% ownership that it's not a priority.
All right. Are we, Mike, what did you copy from? Because I got in the run sheet Cincinnati and the Dodgers. You got Detroit and KC in there. Me neither. That's okay. Just go swap that out for me for
and Minnesota, Seattle.
And you got Minnesota, Seattle, yeah. So take the last 2 games that I have in the run sheet and replace those at the bottom one. Cincinnati and the Dodgers, 9.5 total here. Cincy huge dogs, plus 195 in the road. We'll get to these Dodger bats, but I think first probably we got to talk about Bobby Miller, 7,700, 4th highest owned pitcher on the slate. We don't have him grading out particularly well as far as top 2 percentage goes or leverage, but he is discounted. We've already mentioned many times throughout this show on a 14 gamer, not a lot of good value pitching today outside of like who did we say earlier that was 6,300 that was
Grayson.
cheap? Yeah. But there isn't a lot more discounted guys sub 8K that make a lot of sense.
Yeah, Miller's fine. I don't think he should be 22.5% owned, which is what he's projected for right now. 10% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. It's just like he's fine. Again, there's not a lot of good pitching in this price range, but I don't think he should be twice as popular as Grayson Rodriguez when Rodriguez is $1,400 less. I don't think he should be 4 times as popular as Mackenzie Gore in the same price range. So it is a spot where I think at the very least, if you have popular hitters, you can find some pivots. But Bobby Miller is fine. 23% strikeout percentage, 4.04 xFIP so far in the majors. The Reds have talent, but they're still a young, inconsistent, not great offense. So 3.6 implied run total. Bobby Miller is a good play. I just kind of question why he's getting as much ownership as he is, given that Rodriguez and Gore aren't getting much at all.
What about these Dodger bats against Williamson?
I love the Dodgers here. 6% projected ownership. They are expensive, so they're like 8th in stack score, but you have the ability to get to cheap pitching today. You can go to Rodriguez, you can go to Gore without sacrificing really any upside at all. You can go to Bobby Miller, who's reasonably priced. You have a near 6 implied run total for the Dodgers. This game's in LA instead of Cincy, which is, you prefer it was in Cincy. But Josh and I talked about this the other day. This is a top 5 home run park over the last 3 seasons. And nobody, for me, I always forget that. I don't think of it that way. I don't think most people do. The other parks up there, it's like, oh yeah, those are obviously good hitters parks, Yankee Stadium, Cincinnati, the White Sox, the Angels, but the Dodgers are in there too. And so this is still an appealing spot. Williamson is not very good. 241 expected ISO to righties this year, only 131 to lefties. But when you're talking about lefties like Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy, I don't really care about that. But Betts, Smith, Martinez, Taylor, they have Kike now, second base shortstop eligible for sub 3K. That's, a way you can save some salary. Ahmed Rosario isn't great, but he's a better shortstop option from a DFS standpoint than Miguel Rojas. So that makes the lineup a little bit more appealing as well. I really like the Dodgers, especially if they're not going to get that much ownership.
Yeah, it looks like nobody's really getting that much ownership today, them being another one.
Yeah, and it just seems like because they're relatively expensive, they're not projected for that much ownership because people are going to go to the cheap Guardians. They're going to go to the cheap Minnesota team. They're going to go to Coors Field. But it goes back to Grayson Rodriguez, Mackenzie Gore. Yeah, they're not the best projections because they're in relatively tough matchups, but you're not sacrificing upside. Like, you're getting 2 of the best strikeout pitchers on the slate, pairing them with the Dodgers and they're contrarian. Like, that's just a really high upside roster construction.
Any interest in Cincy bats, just given how popular Miller is?
Not really. They're just so expensive. I don't know how.
Yeah,
it's like a different pricing algorithm was applied to the Reds as opposed to every other team, where De La Cruz is priced for his ceiling. McLean is priced for like his penthouse. It's not that like the prices themselves are wrong because, again, De La Cruz has power and stolen base upside. He can break a slate, but it's when you compare them to other spots, like there's no way in hell Matt McLean should be more expensive than Julio Rodriguez.
Yeah,
or Juan Soto, or like Ellie De La Cruz is the same price as Fernando Tatis.
Well, he's the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah, of course.
Boston and San Francisco, only sub 8 total on the slate, 7.5 in San Francisco. Boston plus 120 on the road. You have Logan Webb. We actually have him as a slightly positive leveraged play, 14.9% ownership, a little over 15% top 2 probability here. And then Cutter Crawford's getting about 8% against San Francisco. He's 6,500, so he's cheap. We can talk about that. Logan Webb, north of 10K, though. So he's one of the handful of pitchers that you're going to be paying 10K plus for today. Just a very low total in this game. You're not going to see a lot of exposure going to bats, but it looks like there is a little bit going to both of these pitchers.
Yeah, and Webb is fine. I don't love the price tag against Boston, but you are getting a nice... Well, you're getting a park downgrade for Boston. You have Webb pitching in a good park that limits power. He's a good pitcher. 2.95 xFIP this year, 25.5% strikeout percentage. He was absolute garbage in his last start against Washington, which almost worked out really nicely for me. But you shouldn't take anything away from that. So 15% ownership, I don't have any problems with that. You have cheap offenses today, so that's the thing to keep in mind. Is yeah, it's not a great price tag at 10-2 against the Red Sox, but you're going to just have a lot of lineups where you stack Minnesota, you stack Oakland, you stack the Mariners, whatever it may be. And you can just say, oh, well, Logan Webb fits here and he's a good pitcher. So I don't care if he should actually be 9,500 instead of 10-2. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, he's fine. Cutter Crawford, certainly on that list. I keep mentioning Grayson Rodriguez and Mackenzie Gore as high upside paydown options that aren't getting much ownership. Cutter Crawford's on that list too. $6,500, 7.5% projected ownership. He's likely to face a left-handed heavy San Francisco lineup in a park that limits power. He has a 27% K percentage against lefties this year, 196 expected ISO, but only a 284 expected WOBA. He's been fine against righties as well, 319 expected WOBA, only a 20% K percentage, but you're likely to get a predominantly left-handed lineup from San Francisco. The park limits power, which has been his biggest issue, and the strikeout stuff is there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, what's the ownership right now? It's not
7.5.
Right? 7.5%. Yeah. Super cheap. Among the cheap options, it's Grayson Rodriguez at 12.5%. It's Cutter Crawford at 7.5%. If you want to include Bobby Miller in there, more than $1,000 more expensive, but still cheap. He's the highest owned at 23%. Then it just falls off a cliff. I mean, there's really nobody else. Mackenzie Gore getting a little bit. JP Sears at like 1%. Yeah.
Like I obviously don't know what I will get to, but I would love it if at lock I look at my exposures and I'm taking a stand where, the field is playing, and I don't mean that these are bad stacks. They're good, but like the field is playing Minnesota, who does have power, but like Cleveland, who doesn't have power, Oakland, who doesn't have power because they're cheap and they can get the pay up options. Give me teams like the Dodgers, and I will gladly take Grayson Rodriguez, Cutter Crawford, Mackenzie Gore.
All right. Do you like any bats on either side of this one? Very low total.
Yeah, not particularly. Webb's a really good pitcher. The park sucks for power. Like you can make the case for the Giants are cheap given their talent level. So it's sort of like the Mariners when they're facing good pitching, like that Minnesota series. Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, Conforto, Yastrzemski, Bailey, these guys are all good. And you get a very high upside lineup by stacking them and then just loading up on pitching and one-offs around them. But it's still a relatively low probability spot.
Jags fan, I'm usually at work when you guys are live. Does hitting the like button after the show help any? Yeah, sure does, dude. All of it helps. I mean, when we're live, it helps a lot too, because like the way the algorithm works, it'll serve up more to people when you're, talking in chat and you're engaging and you're hitting the thumbs up. We're almost at 150 thumbs up, by the way. You guys are the best. For real. It's Friday. People are happy on Fridays. But everything, even after the fact, it helps us. Like if you leave comments and stuff, yeah, that stuff goes a long way, hitting the thumbs up. So
talking in chat helps. We need Brandon Katz back.
Yeah. YouTube probably just sees that as a bot, though.
Right.
That's the problem. All right. That's 14 up, 14 down. Let's take a look at the Sims tool, see what type of lineups and stacks we're getting. Obviously, we're simulating thousands of lineups here and looking what the simulated ROI is for pre-contest, looking at the stacks, the top pitchers, what lineups are popping the most. We can sort by the top 150 lineups and see how they look as well. Don't forget, link to the Sims is in the description and chat. Link to the lineup generator, that's 448 for the first week. That's in chat and in the description. And just 50% off all of our tools is in the description. Also, take advantage of that sleeper promo. You're getting $100 for free and a free square on Joe Musgrove today. That's down there. All of our stuff, one-stop shop. You can find it down there or in chat. All right. So
not surprising, Colorado.
Is it Colorado? Okay.
Yeah, Colorado is first and second.
Where'd you see it? Did you run one?
No, it was on the screen a second ago.
Oh, I didn't see it. I was looking at another screen. Okay. So let's see. We got Colorado. Yeah. And you're saying it's possible that changes if
yeah. So what I think is likely to happen is that I don't know whether or not Colorado's projections are going to move a lot, but I do think the ownership projection is going to come up. I don't think they're going to be like the most popular team or anything, but I don't think they're going to be 1 to 2% owned. So really it's just, they're going to still probably look good. They're just not going to right now. The Sims tool is basically just saying like, holy shit, why is nobody playing Colorado? I don't think that's going to be the case.
Chris Williams said, Adam, so last night's contest, how is that guy who won and put the same lineup 4 times in the main and all this? I mean, it was probably, did he have only 4 lineups in him? If so, it was just a dummy lineup.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked, but I hate that guy.
Yeah. Go to lineups, Mike, to the left side. It's always hard to see, so we're gonna have to wait till this pops up on the YouTube screen. Who are the top pitchers coming up? I can't.
Mackenzie Gore was at the top.
Was he?
When he clicked exposures, yeah. Yeah. Gore, Wheeler, Gossman, Grayson. So again, like ownership may change. And, obviously things are going to look different by the time you get to lock because lineups come out where you have more, unexpected value and stuff. But the way this is looking right now is kind of like what I was talking about during the show, how I would love to attack this slate, at least in terms of pitching. 5% owned Mackenzie Gore with the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate. Sign me up. Grayson Rodriguez, 12% owned with a 26% K percentage. We're like 2x the field there. I think that's a really good way to approach lineups. And, Wheeler and Gossman, I think, are the 2 best payout pitchers. So yeah, I'm completely on board with everything that it's showing right now.
All right, let's go to stack ROI real quick, Mike, before we get out of here. So, and sort by 5-man stack. 5-man, the right one, 5-man stack ROI all the way to the right. It's got, look at Colorado right now, Adam. 24%. Yankees at 10%, Milwaukee at 7%, Atlanta at 6%.
Kind of is Yankees is interesting, especially because we were getting to Grayson, but that makes sense to me. Like it's just one of those spots, and it's not as big a deal on a slate of this size as opposed to like your 3-game slates and your 5-game slates. But the Yankees, even with Judge back, obviously that offense is better. But overall, they're still a pretty inexpensive stack, and they're facing a $6,300 strikeout pitcher. What does the game look like if neither of the Yankees or Grayson Rodriguez are good? Like how's that happen?
True. So it's the same approach you had with Seattle and Minnesota the other day.
Right. Yeah, because it's not like, like on a slate of this size, if Grayson Rodriguez was like a 19% K percentage guy, it would be pretty easy to say, well, you could just get six innings, 3 runs from Grayson, 2 strikeouts, nothing looks good. But when Grayson Rodriguez pitches well, he strikes guys out. And if he doesn't pitch well, you have cheap Yankees scoring runs. So it seems like a spot where something has to kind of emerge there. Yeah,
I'm with you. That's the Sims tool. Looking at the pre-contest. Of course, it has a post-contest simulator too. All that stuff. We don't have time. You've seen the huge wins using the Sims tool since we just released it like a month ago. It's been awesome. You love seeing everybody bringing home some solid screenshots using that Sims tool. But more than anything, appreciate you guys. North of 150 likes. Whoa, man, heck of a day. Have a great rest of the day. A great weekend as well. Adam and Josh will be on the deeper dive tonight, followed by Live Before Lock. I'm assuming Greg and Eric will be on that. And we'll see you back here on Monday. I'll see you back here. We got stuff all throughout the week and all that. Fantasy Football Channel. Check our content out there. Odd Shopper. Ben and I already pumping out some football content. It's never too early for some NFL. And then best ball, fantasy, whatever it is. We got you. Have a great day, guys. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here. Follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafayette _D. And thanks to Mike for producing this one. Peace.